Sorry I'm late, love. We had to go to a birthing. No, lass, 'twere no lamb. 'Twas a babe, and the most bonny babe you ever did see. What I have seen tonight, you would never believe it. You just had to be there. Aye, lass, we did start out with sheep. Just an ordinary night, with lads and lambs, so we thought. Sat around fire, listening out for lions and the like. Oh, hold your horses, lass. I'm getting to it, babby. Well, all of a sudden, there were a mighty flash and this chap appeared. Nay, now don't ask me what he looked like, for he shone so bright he were past seeing. 'Course, we were all terrified, 'cause it was like God himself come down. I nearly wet myself, I were that scared. But he told us not to be afraid, that the Messiah was just now being born in David's town. Aye, lass, the Messiah, God's promised one, born here in our little town. Well, we might have thought it a trick or a mistake, but then it was like heaven opened, and a great army of soldiers all in white were in the sky, shouting, "Glory, glory!" Oh, I can tell you, we were shaking. I'll tell thee more of them later, lass, for as amazing as they were, this wasn't half so wonderful as seeing the babby herself. Rich and powerful? Oh, nay, love. He's not born to rich folks, but to normal folks like you and me. His mother, she clutched him so close, like he was real precious. She seemed a sweet lass, gentle and innocent and a little bit scared. Well, the dad, just a lad himself, he was so protective of them, looking down on them with such a light of love on his face. We heard afterwards they'd had a bit of a time of it, but our eyes were all for babby. We forgot about everything. All troubles of our day-to-day lives disappeared. It were as if we weren't under occupation or ruled by tyrants. No poverty, brutality or hunger. Just for a brief moment we were rich men and free. We could see how the world was meant to be. Oh, love, you should have seen him. It weren't like he looked different from other babbies, but as we looked at him, my head was full of all that Messiah stuff we learned as children and that the rabbis tell us in temple. And his face, oh, it was that shining. Not a flash like the bright angel, but something deeper. Like God was truly with us. Oh, I am so full of starlight and wonder, my love. For the angel said, he is the Messiah, the King we're waiting for. And we got a chance to hold him. Just honest men at fields, but we were the first to see his face. And what does that say about who he will be? It's enough to make you think. I think that big things are planned for that little chap. And all I want to do is tell other people about him. Will you come with me now, love, to see him? Luke 2, 10-11. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Saviour has been born to you. He is Messiah, the Lord."
The announcement from the angels to the shepherds was, "Do not be afraid." I don't know about you, but I think if an angel appeared on a dark night when I wasn't expecting it, then I probably would be afraid. And I think maybe you might too. When Gabriel came to Mary, he also said these words, "Do not be afraid." The first human emotion the shepherds felt was that of fear. This might not be a traditional message tonight, but I want to incorporate the subject of fear into this talk. When we have this story, the people in those days were afraid of many things, just as people are afraid today. And for them it was not surprising. Herod the Great was on the throne. He was an evil man. His epitaph was the Great, but it was widely disputed as he is described as a madman who murdered his own family for fear of them taking the throne from him. And he murdered many people as it pleased him. Also at those days were Romans who treated people atrociously. Any sort of disagreement with them was dealt with quickly and severely. Israel was not a safe place to live. Historians tell us that at the time of Jesus' birth, it was a time of great despair. People lived in fear of their lives. Sadly, today, I've met more and more people coming through this pandemic that are controlled and incapacitated by fear. I've never met so many people in such a short period of time to be affected by fear in this way. Fear has gripped them. It controls them. As we look at our nation right now, people have mixed feelings, apprehension and hope. Is it going to get better? Will it get better? Will things change? Of course it will. But no one is really sure what is going to happen next. We see on our televisions conflict after conflict in different nations and extraordinary and unparalleled disasters. If you read the Bible calls these things that are happening the last days. The last days before Jesus returns back once again to this earth, as he promised that he would. When we see things like this, the things that we're seeing today, this is a sign that Jesus is coming back, as he said he would. And the Bible tells us we need to be ready for that. It's interesting that fear appears 365 times in the Bible. One verse for each day of the year. The first words of the angel to those shepherds in the field was, "Do not be afraid." No greater news could have come to those poor shepherds, and can come to us today, than that announcement. The angelic message goes on to say, "For behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be for all the people." This was good news not just for them, but it's good news for us, for all people, throughout all generations, both then and now. That day, a Saviour was born in a little town called Bethlehem. Jesus, the Son of God, came from heaven to earth to save all people, that they no longer need to be afraid of anything. And the wonderful news for us this Christmas time is that Jesus came to free people, to give us hope, to give us assurance, to give us peace, and to give us joy. The Christmas message 2,000 years on is still the same message. It's about God's love to us. God loved us so much that he gave the most precious, indescribable gift that he could. The gift is his own precious Son, Jesus, who would come and deliver us and save us. It is through God's precious gift, Jesus, that we can know God personally, as we discussed yesterday. When we know Jesus, we do not need to fear. There is a verse in the Bible that is probably the most famous verse, and it's found in the Gospel of John, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, chapter 3, verse 16 to 17. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. We said yesterday that each of us here was created to have a personal, living relationship with God. Until we find that relationship, there will always be something missing in our lives. As a result, we are often aware of this void. People try to fill this emptiness in various ways. Some try to fill the gap with money. One of the richest men in the world, Aristotle Onassis, said at the end of his life, "Millions do not always add up to what a man needs out of life." Other people try drugs, alcohol, sex. They might provide instant gratification, but they leave us feeling hollow afterwards. Even the closest relationships, as wonderful as they are, do not in themselves satisfy the emptiness inside. The truth is that nothing will fill this gap except the relationship with God for which we were made. So the shepherds were told not to be afraid. It did not make any difference what Herod or the Romans or others could do to them. The promised Saviour of the world had arrived. A deliverer had come who would change their lives. The result was the shepherds experienced amazing joy. For those who accept Jesus in their heart, they will experience amazing joy. For me, as I look back on my life, that moment that I accepted Jesus and asked Jesus to come and live in my life, it was a moment of great joy. It was a sense of deliverance, a sense of freedom, a sense of release. This is something everyone can experience. When we face fearful situations every day, times when fear grips us or when we are anxious, it is in those times we have a Saviour, a deliverer called Jesus. And Jesus reminds us today, for those that are listening, do not be afraid. This is what the Christmas message means. Whatever is ahead of us, we have the assurance that Jesus, Emmanuel, God, is with us. And he will lead us through any circumstances that we face. And this knowledge, this understanding gives us peace and joy. I'd like to finish with an illustration, a true illustration. It's called "Who Will Take the Sun?" Many years ago, there was a very wealthy man who shared a passion for art collecting with his son. They owned priceless works by Picasso and Van Gogh. As winter approached, war engulfed the nation, and the young man left to serve his country. After only a few short weeks, his father received a telegram. His son had died for the nation. He was distraught and lonely. The old man faced the Christmas holiday with anguish and sadness. The joy of the season had vanished with the death of his son. Then on Christmas morning, he awoke to someone banging on his door. As he walked to the door, the masterpieces of art on the wall only reminded him that his son was not coming home. He opened the door and he was greeted by a soldier with a large package in his hand who said, "I was a friend of your son. I was the one he rescued when he died. He saved my life. Could I come in for a few moments? I have something to show you." The soldier mentioned that he too was an artist, and he gave the old man a package. The paper gave way to reveal a portrait of the man's son. Though the world would never consider it a work of art or a work of genius, the painting featured the young man's face in striking detail. Overcome with emotion, the man flung the portrait over the fireplace, pushed aside millions of dollars worth of art and placed his son's picture in the middle of the mantelpiece. The old man sat in his chair and spent Christmas gazing at the gift he had been given. The painting of his son soon became his most prized possession, far eclipsing any interest in the pieces of art for which museums around the world had clamoured. The following spring, the old man died. The art world waited with anticipation for the upcoming auction. According to the will of the old man, all the works would be auctioned on Christmas Day, the day he had received the greatest gift. The day soon arrived, and the art collectors from all around the world gathered to bid on some of the world's most spectacular paintings. The auction began with a painting that was not on anyone's museum list. It was a painting of the man's son. The auctioneer asked for an opening bid, but the room was silent. Who will open the bid for $100? No one spoke. Finally, someone said, "Who cares about that painting? It's just a picture of his son. Let's move on to the good stuff." The auctioneer responded, "No, we have to sell this one first. Now, who will take the son?" Finally, the gardener of the old man offered $10. "That's all I have. That's all I possess. I knew the little boy, and so I'd like to have it." The auctioneer said, "Going once, going twice," and the gavel fell. Cheers filled the room, and someone exclaimed, "Now we can bid on the real treasure." The auctioneer looked at the room filled with people and announced that the auction was over. Everyone was stunned. Someone spoke up and said, "What do you mean it's over? We didn't come here for a painting of someone's son. There are millions of dollars worth of art here. What's going on?" The auctioneer replied, "It's very simple. According to the will of the Father, whoever takes the Son gets it all." Whoever takes the Son gets it all. God the Father says, "Whoever takes my Son Jesus Christ gets it all." That includes peace, joy, and freedom from fear, and forgiveness of sins. You see, the whole point of Christmas is not about giving, it's about receiving. It's about receiving God's gift for us. Jesus is the reason for the season. Today, God asks you and I this question: will you receive the gift I have for you?